What's going on, everybody? It's D Got Sense back on the D Got Sense show to discuss the topic of episode 4, which is never give the enemy ammo. So, before I even get started, first we must understand what the ammo is, right? And who the enemy is. And the enemy will always be someone that, whether they are known to you or unknown, whether they are obvious and blatant or they're well disguised. The enemy could be anyone trying to negatively impact you in any form or fashion in the four areas of life: spiritually, financially, mentally, and then physically, right? Um, and it doesn't always have to be someone that's trying to be on the extreme in every area, right? So when you understand who the enemy is, it could be people you've known for years on end and have never questioned their intention, but right, but their action has always caused you to lose in the long haul. And um, so the enemy could be a bunch of people, or it could be coworkers, right? A lot of people have been in negative environments for years on end, and at no point have they ever questioned um, whether they've been working with the enemy. And before we, take a dive into it, what is the ammo? The ammo will be anything that someone could use against you. Um, Most commonly, you'll see it in movies as giving away information, allowing someone to have leverage over you. Um, so the ammo could be um, things that could be used to tarnish your reputation, harm you physically, bankrupt you, and cause you a lot of mental turmoil and things that'll just ultimately just lead to your demise, right? That's as simply as I could put it is what the ammo would be. And the reason now I'm about to dive into it a little bit. And the reason you never give the enemy ammo is because it's like the old saying, you can do something to someone or for someone and you can never choose on how they pay you back, right? That's why in the world you don't play with everybody the same, right? Because you could push somebody down and they might go wipe out your entire bloodline. You know what I mean? And some people might just brush it off and choose to just walk the other way. So you can't control people's actions, right? This is why it's important to vet everyone that comes into your life, because there's an old saying that says when you deal with someone, you deal with all that made them who they are, right? Meaning every nuance that has crossed them throughout the entirety of their life, that has shaped and molded them into the person you see in front of them, whether for better or worse. And it's one thing you truly can't look past, because you just never know when that person is gonna pay you back. Um, and like I said, that payback doesn't necessarily have to be a good thing or a bad thing. It just depends on the situation at hand. And the dangers of giving someone that amount of leverage over you is almost how, if you've ever watched movies, how extortion and blackmail work, right? You let someone get entirely too close that shouldn't have been there. You put people in a position that they weren't capable of managing, right? And eventually it causes the whole structure to collapse. And one thing I was talking to one of my family about, or somebody in my family about, was putting people in a position that they were never capable of doing, right? It's kind of like trying to, and I'll use this example. It's kind of like trying to teach a baby calculus, right? It doesn't mean that the baby is bad or good. No. Does it mean that the baby's stupid? No. But they don't have the mental capacity or aptitude to even do the job, right? Like they physically cannot. They don't have the the capacity. I mean, simply as to put it. So I've noticed over the years is a lot of people tend to get hurt by putting people in positions that they're quite literally not capable of doing. And eventually, when you do things like that, you've allowed someone to be in a position that they won't succeed in, and you've allowed them to get too many. Um, you've basically given them the blueprint to your entire operation, but they didn't have the mental capacity to handle that information and not basically just mismanage it, right? And that type of carelessness will eventually cost you in the long run. And you have willingly given over ammo to the enemy, all because your your lack your lack of attention to detail. And the details is they weren't capable of carrying the ammo um, responsibly anyway. Oftentimes, people will let people in all because of emotion, right? And the and the consequence of moving someone in entirely too soon before you vet them is you don't find out a person's intentions. You don't find out what a person is truly capable of. Most importantly, right? Because everyone is on the team until they're not, and you can't, like I was saying earlier, you can't tell someone how they're gonna pay you back for how they feel, right? And that's kind of where the danger lies in giving the enemy ammo. You might have told a childhood friend something that happened to you as a child, and next thing you know, y'all fall out, and they're threatening to tell people, or they're threatening to go to the internet, or whatever, whatever the case may be. It can be a whole bunch of things, right? You say you're a now I don't condone this, right? But say you out in the streets and you doing all this and that, and you tell somebody what you're doing, right? You might not even tell them exactly what you did, but you're telling them how you do it. And in doing so, you have told them how your operation works. And now all of a sudden, this thing you've taken all this time to build can instantly be collapsed off of a person feeling some type of way. It's a very dangerous game to play in giving the enemy ammo. Because in giving the enemy ammo, you have taken the defense away from yourself. It's kind of like if we say everyone has a gun, but no one has a bullet, right? Say okay, I'll give you an example. Say everyone has a gun, right? And everyone's given one bullet, but the bullet you have can only be fired. Um, the bullet that you have can only be used against you. Like no one can use someone else's bullet on someone else, right? So basically, only you have your bullet, and only your bullet can hurt you. When you give away that one bullet that you have, now you have given over the ammo, and now the narrative can be made into whatever, right? Because that's how people are even believing lies in the first place. Most lies have half truths put in them. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, um, say someone got exposed for doing whatever, right? All it takes is someone to come up with a story similar to what people know to be true. And now all of a sudden there's false narratives, right? And say you did do it, right? The first thing. Who's to say you didn't do the second, the third, or the fourth, right? Because the first has been exposed and it was true. And now people have just, can run off with it and do whatever. That's why being on the internet, which is where you get trapped, is in the net. That's why it's so dangerous, is because people can skew the narrative quite literally. And most of the time, context doesn't matter when it comes to media and propaganda. No one truly cares. And the modern world is a prime example of that because very rarely do you see people actually go get to the bottom of the bottom of get to the bottom line and find the truth of the story. I saw a comment section earlier where um, I can't remember what it was, but basically people just ran off of the first thing they saw, and then someone placed a source that basically gave the truth of what actually happened, and all of a sudden you see people go, "Dang, that's crazy! I can't believe that." Oh, and in my head I'm just thinking to myself like, "Wow, how quickly people run with the narrative without fact checking anything." And this is the danger in giving enemies your ammo because people do not care about the truth. They just care about the first thing they see. That's kind of why first impressions matter so much to humans, right? Any common sense will tell you every impression matters, not just the first. But that is what the general public will run with is the first impression matters, and that's why most people get caught up because all you got to do is put up a front the first time you meet somebody, and all you got to do is keep up the front for that first impression, and all of a sudden they give you all their ammo. Excuse me. That's why most people get caught up in all this craziness. They're not good at deciphering who the enemy is. And like I always say, people are inherently bad, right? Ever since the fall in the Garden of Eden, man is inherently bad because sin entered into the world. And to assume that most people are just good and righteous, and when I say righteous, I mean the law, statutes, commandments of the Most High Yah. Most people are inherently not good. I was talking to someone recently, and I told him. He said, "Do you think people are good?" I said, "No," and he was like, "Well, I think so." I said, "Well, I mean, we'll just have a difference of opinion." And then he was like, he asked me for a percentage, and he said, "Would you say 85%?" I said, "That's entirely too low." And then he said, "What you mean?" He said, "Man, 15%. You think 15% of people are good?" And I said, "Man, you giving people too much credit. We have to stop assuming that people just stop becoming liars because they came out in the public. Covetous, desirers of other people's belongings, right? Backstabbers, right? Speaking lies behind people's backs, doing things that will cause someone to lose things, right? Self or not self sabotage, but sabotage, right? You and everyone can think of people they've worked with that done it, right? You have to understand these are somebody's friends, right? That will never see the snake or shiesty activity of this person, but you do. And everyone, or I won't say everyone, most people do that, right? Because they're not anchored by the standard of the creator. And that's what's so dangerous is when people are able to self-govern themselves. Now, I'm not saying people need the government over them, they corrupt too. I'm saying man needs the creator, Yah, the most high. That's what I'm saying. And unless people are guided by the most high, they will always be the enemy. That's why he said to come out from among them. Because like I said in the previous video, man, we're in the same country that people say, hitting a woman is bad, but killing babies isn't. Like, where's the craziness in that? I just ran across a dude that talking about he's sinless, right? But the man supports all this foolishness that the American government is going for. You know, he supports same, a man being with a man. Like, hold on now, that will literally cause genocide, mass genocide. Quite literally, you cannot a society cannot carry on that way and expect to live on. Literally, people can feel however they want about it, but that's just a fact. Well, science can demand. I ain't talking about that. So when it comes down to understanding who the enemy is, you have to realize most people are, statistically speaking, will be your enemy. And a lot of people are so scared to be alone and not um, be in their own space and love themselves. They rather just go befriend a bunch of people that they don't know, and then allow the enemy to get close, grab the ammo, and then do them bad in every way possible. At some point, you have to take your head out of the sand and start looking around, because allowing an enemy to get too close will always cause you to lose. And let me be honest, you can only take so many losses in life before you become depressed, stressed, and filled with no rest. You can't do it. So giving the enemy ammo can be literally negated by you just paying more attention to who you're allowing around you. I know people to this very day that will claim that somebody is a best friend up, down, left, and right and have no clue about what these people think about different topics. And that other person has the most um, detrimental information on them. It's like, wait, hold on. And you know what? I won't even. I'll just say this: never tell anyone anything you wouldn't want the world to know. That is the biggest tip that I could give you guys with this entire video. That is this entire video summed up. Never tell anyone anything you wouldn't want the world to know, right? And obviously, if now a husband and wife, that's different, right? That is your spouse. Um, you should be open and honest with your spouse. I'm not talking about them. I am not talking about them. I am talking about friends, family. that have not been truly vetted, and you and when I say trust with that information, I mean you trust that they're close enough to the Most High to not do nothing crazy with that information. See, I don't trust man. I trust the Most High, and I trust that the person I put in a position in my life is close enough to Him, and they trust Him enough to not go do nothing crazy with it. That's how that's supposed to work. You don't just you're not supposed to just be out here uh, doing everything with everyone and letting everyone in on the operations of your life. You gonna get caught up, and it's gonna end terribly for you, terribly. But this was a simple video. Just never give the enemy ammo. Don't let people get too close that shouldn't be there. Um, and don't tell your deepest, darkest secrets to people that have um, any intention on, or not intention, that's the wrong word to use. Don't tell people detrimental information, or information that can be detrimental to you, that you wouldn't want the world to know, when they haven't been truly and properly vetted and have an incentive to tell the world, right? You got to get around people that have no incentive to do you bad, right? That's why legal marriage in America is such a bad thing. Why would you sign a contract that incentivizes someone to break it? No, makes zero sense whatsoever. And then, people talk about prenuptial agreements, and it's like, hold on, you're having to sign contracts to not get screwed out of this contract. It's time for some self-reflection. But with that being said, man, this is episode 4 of the D Got Sent show. Never give the enemy ammo. Hopefully y'all have a good rest of y'all day. Peace, and I'm out.